Good afternoon, Commissioners. Might have hit it just a little too hard. All right. Yeah. Yeah, I confirmed that.
No, I misspelled a word. I added another line, so you're good. Just one thing, one budget minute, just a little more information.
Hey, how are you? Great.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. If we will come to order, we'll begin the monthly meeting of the Anderson County Commission Budget Committee for Thursday, May 4, 2023, 4 o'clock p.m. Robbie, if you would call the roll, please.
Okay, Commissioner Wandale. Here. Commissioner Foster. Commissioner Vandegrift. Here. Commissioner Val.
Here.
Commissioner White. Here. Commissioner Beauchamp. Here. And Commissioner Smallridge.
Here.
Let the record reflect we do have a quorum. If you would join me in prayer, please, and then Commissioner Vandegrift will lead us in the pledge. Heavenly Father, we thank you, Lord, once again for all your many blessings. We thank you, Lord, for being with us through the good times, through the dark times, ever reminding us, Father, that you're still there, that you're still present. Please forgive us of our sins, times that we fail you. Father, be with us today as we conduct the business of your people. Give us your wisdom, give us your guidance to do what's right in your sight. All this we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioners. Before we get started, housekeeping item. It has been confirmed with the vacant seat that we currently have on Budget Committee. That drops the numbers required for passing motions. Instead of 5, it is now 4. So just before we get started, for everybody to understand that. Again, we miss Commissioner Denenberg already. She was always one that usually sat right beside me here to the right, and anytime she thought I was getting off track, she was always there to kind of pull me back in. So I appreciate that, whether I get it from my wife at home or whether I get it from someone here at the courthouse. So having said that, if there are no questions on that matter, we'll get started with the agenda.
Okay.
Director Holbrook.
Looking at the cash and fund balance report ending April 30th, 2023. Unassigned fund balance for the general fund, $9.2 million. Total fund balance is $15,644,920. Cash, $20,337,855, which is up $2.4 million from last April. And GPS general purpose school total fund balance $12.3 million. Cash, $23,067,483. Any questions on the cash and fund balance report? Okay, if not, moving to sales tax really quick. This month for March, $3,767,310 was our total collections for the county as a whole, up 8%. Anderson County's portion, $402,603, down a little bit from last March, but we're still staying on the line right there. Steady, kind of.
Any questions on the sales tax report? Commissioner Wandale.
Not on the sales tax. I was kind of going to go back to the cash and fund balance report. Did we make the adjustments on those funds that weren't expended on ARP? Is it reflecting now in these numbers?
Not on the cash and fund balance report. The ARP cash balance is correct at $11,100,860.
So you just,
But that's on the other report, the next report I
Yeah.
have, yes. Where
Okay.
we haven't made that for the Highland Communications. Is that what you're referring to?
yeah.
We still have one PO open for the clearing off the land and stuff that we haven't closed. And as soon as we close that PO, we will be able to move that money to the.
And that 230, is it gonna go back into the ARP code, or is it gonna go in?
It'll stay in the ARP code, but it will be in the unrestricted component of it as opposed to the restricted, which is where it was initially. We already actually have it in the unrestricted component, we have it in there, it's full value right now. So when that PO gets closed, I think it's gonna be something like,
So that $11,108,860.
Well, that's just cash. That's what we spent that has gone through the
That-
bank account.
So that number has not taken in effect.
Well, it would not, it would be reflecting that cash, yes, the 250,000 is in that total,
that
yes, sir.
only gets reduced when we spend, actually
Right.
cut a check, so.
So in that 11 million, has it or has it not been put into the 11 million, the 232 you referenced?
It is in the 11 million because it has not been spent yet,
Okay.
yes.
All right. Thanks for clarifying. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any further questions?
Okay, and
Go
Tracy,
ahead,
on the ARP projects, we did add the column you asked for, the date approved by commission on the right side, the very last column. Revenue loss, we still have 489,000. Other eligibilities that have more restrictions, 2.1 million, for a total of 5.6 million available in the ARP funds. And I know we do have a project coming up later on in the budget committee that addresses some of these funds as well.
Any questions on the ARP report? Hearing none, moving on.
Okay. On the consent agenda, 1 through 15 are all transfers not requiring full commission approval. I can take them as a group, pull any out, answer any questions, try to answer any questions that you might have, or take them individually. It's up to you all.
Do we have a motion?
Move we approve as a group.
Motion made by Commissioner Smallridge to approve items 1 through 15 as a group, seconded by Commissioner White. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Motion carried.
Okay, 16 through 18 is 2 transfers for payroll for the school department and 1 appropriation for $12,000 for the school department. Seeking approval as a group.
Motion approved, the group.
Commissioner Wandale moves to approve item number 16
Through 18.
through 18 as a group, seconded by Commissioner White. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Motion carried.
Okay, number 19 is from the highway department. It is an appropriation from restricted for highway for $50,000 increase in equipment and main machinery parts, $49,000, and uniforms, $1,000.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Vandergrift to approve item number 19, seconded by Commissioner Wandale. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Motion carried.
Okay, 20 and 21 are both from EMS. They're both increasing revenue. One is a LASH grant, $1,800, and the other is a revenue they received from Freddy's in Oak Ridge to help pay for EMS Week events. We've already received that $630, and we're moving them to expenditure codes.
Motion approved.
Second.
Commissioner Wandale moves to approve items 20 and 21,
Yes, sir.
seconded by Commissioner Smallridge. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Motion carried.
Okay, 22 and 23 are both from the property assessor, $15,000 for legal services, still dealing with the manufacturing science appeal, and $4,083 for audit services, which are business personal property tax auditing services. Is a contract the state and local tax advisors we have to pay. Both out of their restriction that they have, that has $52,000 available.
Motion approved.
Commissioner Wandale moves to approve item number 22. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Vandergrift. Any discussion? Commissioner Smallridge.
Yeah, just legal services, what does that entail?
It's, if we have a someone appeals their property assessment, we have to fight that appeal. We hire an outside attorney.
So.
So we
more
have a
than-
pretty large one, or a pretty long one going on right now with a manufacturing sciences in Oak Ridge that, it's probably the third time we've came for more money for this.
It's the reason for the increase. Thank you.
Commissioner White?
That was it.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Motion carried.
You did 22 and 23, Shane, or is that just
Yeah,
22?
that was my intent.
I'm sorry.
Both.
Yep, that was my intent
Okay, thank you.
as a group.
The next one is from the law director, recovery suits. I did the budget amendment. It's for $52,545.24 out of unassigned fund balance for the recovery lawsuits for Miller Legal. This should complete the billing for this lawyer.
Do we have a motion?
Move for approval.
Commissioner Smallridge moves to approve item number 24. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner White. Any discussion?
And Robert, Mr. Chairman, Robert, you said this was not be the complete,
This should be we will not receive
should
any.
be,
I asked that question and I was told yes. I was told yes, this was the last bill. Complete the billing.
thank
Any further discussion? Commissioner Wandale?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Robbie, how much, when this originally was asked to go to recover the funds, what was the original amount we allocated?
We took them bill by bill, invoice by invoice. We didn't allocate originally. I don't think we were ever given a specific amount as far as how much it would cost. But I asked Budget Committee, the first bill came last fiscal year, and that committee wanted to take each invoice from to ask for the funds as the invoices came.
Do you have a total, sorry, do you have a total amount of where we are on this one?
The total amount was when we had commissioned the special call meeting, we were 80,000. I think we received another bill that was, we did receive another bill that was around 5 more. So anywhere from 85 to 87,000 is the total amount. I don't have that exact figure, but I could probably figure it up really quick.
That's okay. So this 52 is part of the 80.
Yes,
roughly.
I'd already included that in that meeting because we had received those already. So we had another $5,000, a little more, 5,000 plus included from the 80.
Okay, thank you.
you. And this 52 is part of that 85.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, not addition, part. The total is
Commissioner-
85 for all. that we
Commissioner
paid.
Bochamp? Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no.
No.
Hand vote. All in favor, say, raise your right hand. 1, 2, 3. And opposed, I'm assuming is the other 3, so motion fails.
Well, we have to pay it though.
Well, sir, that would be my thought, but it just failed our voting, so.
Will
I
it go
guess-
to commission as not approved by this committee?
Do what now?
Would it go to commission as not approved from this?
I think the Rules Committee, recommended, and if I may be mistaken on this part, so somebody double check me, but I think Commission voted to accept Rules Committee opinion that it's got to pass now. We changed that rule. Double check me to make sure. But regardless, I do think the law director needs to be notified that we've now voted not to pay this bill.
Well, I have an email from him. I brought my phone up here. And I didn't, so I can't read it. Shane, you have the same email.
I have a,
If you could read what he said. He had an emergency meeting with some employees in the county. We could, I don't know.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask the 3 that voted no to tell me why you voted no?
Sure, I'll start. I've sat up here just a little under the years you've sat here, and as far as I'm concerned, the cost that we're incurring with our legal services has gotten way out of hand. I didn't vote for this expenditure on the front end, I don't believe. And I haven't, it'd kind of be hard for me to vote on the back end when I voted no on the front end. I understand the position, we gotta pay it, but I didn't like it when we was gonna do it the first time. I don't like it now, but it doesn't matter whether I like it or not. I agree, we gotta pay it. But sometimes our citizens need to know where we're at. You know, 50,000, 80,000, 2 million, you know, it all starts adding up. And, you know, I think at some point, this commission's gonna have to get their arms around how we're gonna proceed in the future and ensure that we keep our costs as it relates to legal fees in check. I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, it is what it is. If I was an attorney and I lost this kind of money, I would expect people to run me out of town. Just the way I feel about it. So that's why I voted no.
And for me, since I've sat here since September, they keep putting these bills forth, I've voted no every time. And then for a guy that stood here and told us that he was leaving the case, I don't agree we should pay him, and I'm not gonna go on a should be the last bill until I confirm that it is the last bill. I may take it into reconsideration at that time, but I've stood up here and voted no every time he's brought a bill before, because I don't think we should be paying an outside firm to seek money from a firm that we have. That's just my opinion on that, so I voted no every time.
I think for me, it really was that we keep paying, we keep paying, we keep paying, and when's it going to end? So until we're sure this is absolutely the last invoice that we are going to receive, I can't vote yes for that. And then also just that we really, I understand that they did provide some service, but we didn't get what we asked for, right? And pretty much it was their decision to withdraw. So I don't feel like we owe them that money.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, folks. That brings me back to the point I was trying to make early on. We should have, I think, specified the amount of money we was gonna spend in legal fees, which we didn't. We just about gave them a blank check. And here we are, it's time to pay up. But I think in the future, we ought to set some kind of a parameter as far as the limit of what we're gonna spend on these lawsuits. Or either keep the money in our pocket, one of them, just,
I agree with that. I will say these bills go back to January of 2023, sorry. And, because it was a quarterly bill this time. I did ask Jay if this was the last legal bill because I wanted to let you all know that, and the response was yes, so that's all I can tell you.
And maybe our law director, if he were present, I know he's busy right now in a meeting, may be able to shed some more light on this, but a lot of times in dealing with attorneys, they don't know how much it's gonna cost. So with us setting a limit, saying, well, we're not gonna pay more than this, it kinda limits them on what they're going to do or what they're gonna be able to obtain, so. Again, and I'm not an attorney, yeah, I see the hands going up all over the house. Commissioner McCamey, go ahead, sir. It's like being in church.
Mr. Chairman, a motion to refer it to the full commission without a recommendation would be in order.
Well, the motion failed, so I don't know if that motion would be,
I think he's saying if you made another motion to
if,
refer to commission
since the
without-
original motion failed, we could either do that or wait till next month. I miss,
I don't know those rules.
much pleasure of the committee.
I'll make a motion that we send it to the full commission without a recommendation.
So we have a motion on the floor to send to commission without a recommendation. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Smallridge. Any discussion? Commissioner Smallridge.
Yeah, I just want to comment that I understand the frustration about this money, and I have the same feeling, but we, as a commission, approved this contract with the company. And unfortunately, it was open-ended, and maybe it could have been done otherwise, but I'm not sure. I just think this is for services that have been provided already, so we're talking about paying for something that we may not be happy with the services, but we have received them. So, just wanted to make that comment.
Any further discussion?
I would like to say one thing.
Mayor Frank, go ahead, man.
Before she's walking up here, I would just like to say, I don't want to see us, by not paying a bill, that we get dragged in another lawsuit and even owe more money. So that's my only, I'm just worried about something like that.
To that point, there might be a possibility commission could ask to negotiate this bill, because I did pull the 2 letters of engagement authorized by this body, and those letters of engagement did say that there would be billing on a monthly basis and that the county would pay on a monthly basis. And so when no estimate was set, which I think it was actually commissioners here that raised the issue of what are the estimated costs. You are supposed to estimate something. And the only way to keep a tab on it otherwise would be through that monthly billing. So there might be a way to negotiate down based on that failure to abide by that engagement letter with the law firm. So that is something to keep in mind as also a possibility. I have been looking at the bills as well, and there are some things on there that, for instance, the county was charged for Everlaw multiple times, which is a document sharing platform. It's understood that fees are to be paid if there are filing fees or if there's some kind of outside expert. And I don't know, I think there needs to be some clarification on that, why, to me, an attorneys normally charge their document sharing system. That's their cost of doing business. That might be some room too for the county to save some funds there. So there might be the ability to work that bill down.
How would who would work that bill? Who would do that?
I would say the finance director could work with the law director, commission chairman. I mean, it is definitely worth raising those issues on some of those fees, such as the Everlaw, and just the failure to abide by the agreement, which was the county would be billed monthly, not quarterly or not 4 months worth of charges. That kind of is how this got to be a runaway train on the bill.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make that a motion.
So the motion on the floor is to forward to commission without a recommendation. So would you like to make a motion to amend the motion
Can I
to?
withdraw that motion?
Yes, sir.
Would you?
All right.
Yes.
So
Strike that
now,
out.
new motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we instruct our finance director and our law director, and possibly our mayor, if she's willing, to negotiate this bill and see if there's any way that we can reduce that for the county.
Can we table this for next month? Put it back on for next month, after negotiations?
Oh, yeah, I'd say we'd have to. Before we pay the bill, it's got to come back in front of
Table
us.
this for next month's budget meeting, so
Well-
they can negotiate.
We need this to pass first.
Yeah.
Okay.
So his motion is to direct the finance director, the law director, possibly the mayor to enter negotiations to reduce the bill.
Yes, sir.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Smallridge. Any discussion?
Sir?
Can I get you to pull your mic down when you're speaking to me? Thank you.
Can't hear you, Jerry.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Now, Robbie,
That was just 24.
that does need to go in front of commission, though.
That will go in front of commission, yes, I'll present it that way. That was 24. On your sheet, but on the online, I had 24 and 25 together. On the paperwork I handed out, I have them separate. So 25 is an amendment from the mayor for $519.96 for the ORRCA website hosting fees for unassigned fund balance, and the county will be reimbursed for these funds. So it's that's the amendment number 25.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Beauchamp moves to approve item number 25, seconded by Commissioner White. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Motion carried.
Okay, and number 26 is from County Commission, Annette Pruitt, increasing travel 1,800.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Commissioner White moves to approve item number 26, seconded by Commissioner Smallridge. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Motion carried.
Okay, and at number 27, I did this budget amendment for the General Sessions judges. And we're increasing a payroll code $8,700 and retirement and unemployment, and I found the money within their budget. When we elected 2 new judges, we had an employee retire. They had a rather large vacation payout, which reduced this budget code. I'm going through for payroll codes and benefit codes for next month, and I found this earlier, so I did it this month. But there'll be I'll have some amendments. We can't have a payroll code go in the red, and this is a legitimate excuse. Anytime we have an employee resign or term, we have to pay out any vacation payout. So it reduced that's the reason for the reduction in the code.
Motion to approve.
Commissioner Bochamp moves to approve item number 27.
Seven.
Couldn't read the handwriting. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Smallridge. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Motion carried.
Okay, under Section A, it's just a grant application approval for the Briceville Public Library for, the grant is $1,035.55. It's to expand wireless coverage inside and outside the library for Briceville. I just need approval for this.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Beat you on that one.
Commissioner Bochamp moves to approve Section A, seconded by Commissioner Wandell. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Motion carries.
Okay, under Section B, it's the senior center kitchen renovation. Mayor Frank's gonna put this on the agenda, asking for additional funding. I'll let her speak to this.
So Commissioners, I put in your budget packet, as you'll recall, many years ago, based on funding limitations, we were unable to do more with the kitchen at the senior center other than just frame that in. And with COVID and all the costs that went up, we were forced to go back out to bid. And in your package, we put together some slides for you on the bid breakdown. At the very end, you'll have, second to last page is the bid breakdown, what we received. We did have 5 construction firms come to the pre-construction meeting, but ultimately only 3 submitted bids: Jenkins and Stiles, GCE Construction, and Holston Construction Services. We are required to award to the low bidder, and it is based on the total package. So I did look to see, could we pick one, have one group do one alternate or not, but we are required to award to one particular firm for the low bid, which in this case is Jenkins and Stiles. They also happen to be the one that can also do it in the quickest amount of time. Their project is 60 days to complete, as opposed to 120 and 91 for the others. While we were going out to bid, we thought we would look at some other things. And again, as I stated in my letter, this is, I can come today only asking for the kitchen, or commission may want to consider some of the alternates that we did put into the bid package. We did 5 different alternates, and there are slides for each one of those. So you'll have the base bid, which is the completion of the full kitchen, installation of all the appliances, wiring, any utility, sewer connects and extensions. The next is an alternate is to, and these are just kind of some high level, but demo the old kitchen, construct a new classroom, and then also add another room that would be medical and health education, and would have sinks and things like that in there. This would increase classroom space, and I won't read all of the slides for you. I know you can read that. Then the next alternate is the activity room. This is the room where they do, if you've walked into the center, and you'll often see them doing the painting and a lot of activities in there. This would demolish those angled walls that kind of limit the space, so it would enable the center to have more space in there, create easier access points to the fire exits, and then also we would run plumbing in there to do, so they have water and sink and counter to wash paintbrushes or do whatever they want with the craft activities. That would also create a large storage area by truing up those walls, eliminating those angles. Then it would create a whole storage closet, which I'm sure if you've been down there, you see that's a need that they have, instead of stuff stacked along the walls. The next alternate is, if, what would it cost if they did a walk-in cooler freezer? We just ask for construction firms to give us bids on that, and that would actually include the cost of the cooler and freezer, not just the work of the installation and all the related electrical needs there. Then the next alternate is exterior improvements. This would be around the entirety of the building, and then also would replace the windows, do weatherization there, and also add a new window on the front. And if you've noticed, it would just, also, there's, I can't remember what that's called. It's not a portico. The little overhang with the stone, it's aging, and just to kind of keep the stone from ever risk of falling off, that particular portion would eliminate that and then put a new configured entrance there and do away with that stone. And then the last alternate would just be to move 2 urinals to open wall and add a partition and add 2 commodes where the urinals were located. And this frees up the ADA accessible commodes. So those are the alternates, and then all of the costs associated with each alternate are in your breakdown there. To do the kitchen alone and finish that, we do have a grant from the state of Tennessee for a small amount for $8,000. So what we would ask for there would be $135,852, and I'm requesting from the ARP revenue loss funding in order to award the low bid to Jenkins and Stiles, and then any other alternates that you might be interested in or willing to consider.
Do we have a motion?
Yeah,
Commissioner Wando.
I'll make a motion. Before I make a motion, though, I want to make sure I know what motion I'm going to make. There's a lot of different options here, so I'll make a motion to approve the kitchen only at this time, because that's what we've been waiting on the longest. So unless we just want to have discussion.
Motion by Commissioner Wandale to approve the option for kitchen only. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a second
Second.
by Commissioner Bochamp. Any discussion?
I have a
I've got
question.
a question.
Commissioner Bochamp.
On our ARPA thing, it says that there has been budgeted $115,628 for kitchen.
Yes.
So is this $135,852, is that additional to this 115, or are we
Yes.
allotting this money too? And
Yes, so it would be, we already have the set aside, so what we have, there, plus the $8,000 from the grant, I would apply to the kitchen. from the state of Tennessee, and then that would leave the remaining balance, the 135,852.
Commissioner Small.
No, that was my, I
Okay.
had the same question that Commissioner Bowe had.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Commissioner Wando.
Thank you. Mayor, I guess we allotted this money in May of 2022,
Yes.
and that was for the kitchen.
Yes.
And here we are in May of 2023. And now we're looking at the kitchen plus several other options.
Right.
And I just want to know what happened to the kitchen? You know, why didn't we just finish the kitchen? I mean, I'm open to the other stuff, but, you know, it seems to me we kind of put some money aside for the kitchen, and then we waited on bids, and then now we've got more bids for other things, and we never finished the kitchen. So if you can explain that.
Sure. So when we set the money aside, I thought we could have used that older bid that was, I believe that was 2018 or 2019. I'll have to get that. I don't remember. So when we did that original project, what was left over, I just did some simple math and thought, okay, that's what we'll be able to do to finish the kitchen. Then I went to Jay, I went to Catherine, because there were cost escalations. And I asked, could we do through change orders, you know, address these cost escalations, because that amount was not going to cover it. And so we just got some estimates from firms at that point in time. What would it take? I mean, what are your new numbers with construction materials, you know, all of those costs? And Catherine and Jay said, you need to go back out to bid. I mean, this is going to be stretching the limits of the contract by putting in place that many change orders. You might have some issues there on procurement and all of those things. So that's why ultimately we had to go back out to bid. And then it just took, you know, it just took time engaging the architect and finishing that up, so.
Okay, so the bid of I think I'm looking at, the 249,980 is just for the kitchen.
Yes, yep,
So that's where the 135,852 comes on top of the remaining 106 that we got in
Yes.
the ARP
Yes, sir.
code already set aside.
Yes.
So if we approve this total 249,980, it would get the kitchen done within 60 days?
Yes, sir.
Theoretically?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I mean, from 60 days from when we do the contract. So we will have to issue a notice of award, then the firm creates the contract, it gets reviewed. So once we get the notice to proceed, it will be 60 days from notice to proceed.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Small.
On these alternates, is it reasonable to assume that, I realize there'll be some savings on the part of the contractor by the fact that he's already there, but could we anticipate that maybe those alternates could be added at some point, later on, not too late, but later on, somewhere near the same amount if we decided?
I can definitely ask. I did not bring the full bids up here to look to see like how long they're, because they'll do a bid and it's good for so many days. 60 days, 90 days, 120 days. It might be good for longer, but I will definitely ask Catherine on that.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Commissioner Vanderburg.
I just wondered, does the senior center have a preference of what's their favorite project? What do they need right now? Is there
I would
priority?
say it would probably differ. Like Cherie would probably like the exterior so that she could have a window. And Commissioner McCamey is here. He could probably answer more. I would say the alternate to the activity room because it opens up that room, gives them more space, puts a sink in there, then also creates storage space. And then the alternate one, the classroom reconfiguration, because that does give them more classroom and activity space. And essentially, you'll just have a kitchen that's there, not really usable. So those two would probably rise to the top. They do have, I think it's some folks at Y12 who do have an interest in helping do one of the walk-in coolers or walk-in freezers. And so, we can talk to them and maybe even talk to the contractor once awarded. Hey, what if they want to come and do one of those? What would that do to the cost? And we could always bring that back to commission and, if we chose to accept their donation. But that is something that's out there. So I would say alternate 1 and 2.
Any further discussion? Commissioner McCamey?
Is the walk-in cooler and freezer part of the kitchen?
No, that's an alternate.
That's not.
Yeah.
I can't see doing the kitchen without the walk-in cooler. Because the old coolers we have down there now, they're all the time breaking down during the night. You don't know until the next morning to come in. I would think that would be a part of the kitchen, so that one option would be walk-in cooler and freezer.
I agree. I think that'd be the time to do it. Especially, Mr.
Go ahead.
Especially the coolers and the freezer and the men's restroom. I'd be in favor of those two if it didn't prolong or it didn't add many days to the completion date. Seemed like while they were there working in the kitchen, seemed like that'd be the time to do that. But let's vote on the kitchen and see where else, everything else plays out.
So I'm looking at the, okay, so would you want to amend the motion to include, I'm sorry, Commissioner Wandell's motion was for the kitchen only, which is, I'm sorry, Mayor, I thought you had put that on the form. I may not be.
The
135,852.
yes.
Do you want to amend the motion, Commissioner White, or do you
No,
want to
no,
vote
sir.
on this
No,
and then
no,
make
sir.
another motion?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. Any further discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Wandell?
The mayor did mention, there is a walk-in cooler, or, that I understand, as you mentioned, that would be donated possibly from some folks at Y12 veterans. And I can't imagine we couldn't get the contractor to work with them while this process is going on. As I said earlier, my issue is we funded this a year ago. I've been catching a lot of heat from seniors wanting to know why the kitchen hasn't been done. Why don't you commissioners fund that kitchen? Well, we have funded it. We funded it May of 2022. So for me to say, okay, let's look at these other things now, and they need this and they need that, I don't dispute any of that. My mission is to finish the first thing we said we was gonna do, which is the kitchen. I agree with Commissioner McCamey. I wouldn't imagine that you would remodel a kitchen and not have refrigeration as part of that. But apparently this $259,000 does not have it a part of it. Maybe it did when we first voted on it at $135,000. You're shaking your head no. I didn't make the bid. I just agreed to fund it. So it's at $259 now, and it still doesn't include it. Fortunately, we have some good friends over at Y12 that are veterans that care about the seniors, and everyone here does too. They're willing to help put that in and pay for it, my understanding. So, Mr. Chairman, all I'm asking is, let's just get the first piece done, because the first piece was a price, now it's this price. Now, if we all want to start adding on other pieces and just keep it going on up, we could do that, but I prefer to finish the kitchen for the seniors. That's my goal.
Any further discussion? Motion on the floor is to approve the option for kitchen only. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carried.
Mr. Chairman, that'll be funded out of the ARP funds. Is that correct? Is that what you're asking?
That's what I asked for you, but.
Yep. No, that's
your
fine.
call.
I'd like to make that motion reflect that, if that's okay. What the
Everybody
mayor
okay with
requested.
that? Complete understanding it's coming out of the ARP funds. All right. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Commissioners, we're now moving into the budget proposals. If there are no objections, and if it's not gonna cause our finance director any undue burden, if we can go ahead and take up the sheriff's office budget first, taking into consideration the audience. Want to thank everybody for coming, not just sheriff's office employees, but since there are some here, if we could go ahead and deal with that, unless there is an objection to that.
What about the district attorney?
I was gonna say, can we do the district attorney first? It won't take, I don't expect to take.
All right, if there's no objection, we'll take the district attorney general's budget first. General Clark?
Thank you. Thank you all. Pleasure to be with you today. This is a relatively modest request. It's been brewing for a little bit. Graciously, Anderson County, not unlike many of the counties across the state, participates in funding the operations of the DA's office. In some counties, over half of the funding comes from local government, but the county has provided for decades a secretary. And this criminal secretary has the same title and essentially the same job duties as other criminal secretaries in the office. The other criminal secretaries are paid on a state budget scale. This criminal secretary is paid on the county budget scale, and historically they have been about the same. But over the years they have diverged. And this request is to increase that funding to match those fundings so that the county employee that's a criminal secretary and the state employees that are criminal secretaries earn about the same amount. There's some practical problems within the workplace and maybe even some legal issues with people with the same duties and title earning a different amount. And so one of the reasons this diverged, one year, I think it's been 3 or so years ago, Commission was approving a pay increase for existing employees, and I think it was $1,000 or $1,200, and it was based on who was working on a date certain as of July 1. As it happened, that position was vacant for a few weeks, and it fell during that period of time. So this position did not get that raise that other county employees got. At any rate, the current pay is $31,122. I had projected the state pay based on what the state was doing this year at $38,696. That estimation actually was a bit high by about $1,000. It actually came in at $37,621. The difference is $6,500, and that would be my request for a budget improvement for this coming fiscal year.
Motion approved.
Commissioner Wandell moves to approve, what are we gonna call this, section C, request 101-53600, since that's the code?
Yeah.
To approve that request, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Beauchamp. Any discussions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner White?
Robbie, where would that money come from?
No, just come from the general fund balance, or, I mean, we're doing a budget, so it's gonna come from property tax, sales tax, just our revenues.
Okay, thank you.
We fund this position, the county does.
Any further discussion? General Clark, I have a few.
Yes, sir.
Just playing devil's advocate, each time the state gives the other employees raises, are you gonna be coming back asking us to give this county employee a raise?
No, sir. This condition has existed probably for a decade, and I've not asked for this before. It just has increasingly become a wider and wider gap as time has gone on, and the gap was so small originally, I didn't think it was worth troubling you with, but it's gotten large enough now that it has become an issue that I thought we should address.
What are you gonna request on the rare occasion that the county gives a raise and the state does not? And then your county employees are actually making more than your state employees?
In that instance, I would not give the county employee that raise. We would just hold it in the balance.
Okay. Is this one of the positions, and I believe I know which position you're talking about, but I won't presume. Is this a position that you kind of use as an entry-level
That's
position,
correct.
and then after a while, and you
Yes,
can
sir.
determine their capabilities, you move them into a state position?
Yes, sir. Typically, that's what happened. And that's what happened when we missed that increase. We had moved someone from that position, and we had a brief vacancy while someone was working out their notice elsewhere.
Okay. Has there been any discussion, and I know you said that a lot of DA's offices across the state do it the same way that we're doing it here. Has there been any discussion for the state to pick up these positions since they're so flush with money right now on the state level?
There has not. They have increased our position at the state level, and then those get allocated by the DA's conference. But it would be a huge price tag. As I said, in many counties, well, not many, but the larger counties, more than half the DA's budget is funded locally, so it would be tens of millions of dollars.
I know this isn't your decision, but that answer, of course, just kind of reinforces sometimes those, what we like to call unfunded mandates. But I understand each DA's office has a great responsibility to the taxpayers, and we certainly appreciate the effort your office puts forth for ours.
I have responsibilities at the state level, and I'll tell you, you know, it's a concern if the residents of our largest counties were to say, wait a minute, why are we paying more than the residents of Anderson County are for the same level of services? It would cost the state of Tennessee a lot of money to make up that difference. We're relatively fortunate here in Anderson County.
Just some questions I had, Jim.
Yes,
Thank you, sir.
they're good and appropriate questions.
Shane, on that motion, could I get also add, not to approve the increase, but also to approve their budget? We haven't approved this budget yet.
Okay.
For the county budget. So.
Okay. So everybody know what we're voting on? You okay with that motion, Commissioner
Yes,
Wendell, to include their full budget?
Absolutely. Full, approve the
Second.
budget with the
Right.
adjustment.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Motion carried.
Thank you all very much. for
Thank you,
your time.
General. Now, if there are no objections, we will consider the sheriff's budget.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Smalley.
I guess I have a little bit of a concern in the order that we're taking these. You know, we have a responsibility to all of our employees, and we're looking at this was through February, a cost of living increase of about 6%. And that's the amount you would need just to keep up with the cost of this, so you don't have to reduce your cost of living. Food for that period was up about over 10%. It's the highest increase in 40 years. So I want to be sure we're able to give all of our staff a decent increase reflecting inflation and so on. And I guess possibly I could see your suggestion that we go ahead with the sheriff's budget. We might have things. Do we have things in the right order? I guess I'm asking.
Well, it was just a suggestion on my part. If you're objecting to bringing the sheriff's office budget up first, I'll be more than happy to go by the order in
We
which the
only-
finance department's issued.
Commissioner Smallridge, we only have one other general fund budget to approve, and that's the election office. And there was no problems or issues with that department. We just kind of got together later in the process, and his budget comes with a $30,000 cut and a $70,000 election reimbursement, so that's like a $100,000 cut. So there's no issue approving that budget. And the general fund, our numbers as far as revenue and expenditures aren't going to change any. I've already got that budget figured in the general fund budget. So I just kind of tried to put the order of the budgets is more or less the simpler. The ones I thought we could do really fast, I put up front just because I
Understand.
thought they would
Yeah.
be
I
kind of
understand,
breeze.
and I have no problem with reneging on my request, and we'll go ahead and do it in the order.
I just want to be assured that we're going to be able to do something for all of our employees. you know.
Okay,
As far as a raise, I think he's
okay.
speaking to.
All right, so we will go ahead and go with the 101 budget, election department.
So if I could just explain that one really quick, we haven't approved this budget yet, but Mark was a little bit late with his totals because he had to get his numbers together. Their budget came in with a decrease of $30,455. It does include a CTAS 5% increase for the election registrar and a $70,000 revenue, which is already included in the budget, and the expenditure costs. We get we get reimbursed for the election this year, $70,000. So really, that cost in that budget is more or less $473,473, which is down almost $100,000 from last year. And I just need approval for this budget.
Motion to approve.
Commissioner Bochamp moves to approve the election commission budget under section C. Do we have a second? Second by Commissioner Vandegrift. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carried. Board of Education.
Yes, Fund 143 and Fund 141 both need approval or rejection. Dr. Parrott is here, and I'll let him speak to these budgets if he would like to really quickly.
I'm here to answer questions for commission, so if you have any more questions, we do. We're out of balance about on the cafeteria, fund. It pretty much is always out of balance, but at the end of the year, it always comes back in from as food cost goes up and down. So that's pretty normal. She has a pretty hefty fund balance on that one. And then on the school's budget, we're out of balance about 1.4. We still have some other revenues that will come in. We believe that when it's all worked out, it'd be about $1 million, but we have a good hefty fund balance to do that. We always use that money for one-time buy, you know, and things like that. That also includes, in that budget, includes $500,000 more in debt service to help offset the cost of when we're going to do Claxton School. So we're getting ahead to that. And we probably, when the board votes on changing some other things in the budget on Monday night, again, I'm not the board, but that will probably raise another $500,000 to really solidify the cost of that school.
Do we have a motion
Motion,
to approve?
yes,
As presented.
as presented.
I
Commissioner
second that.
Smallridge moves to approve the Board of Education budget as presented, seconded by Commissioner White. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Motion carried.
Did that get both of them? You have to have. Okay.
You're done.
Thank you, Doctor. Debt service funds and capital projects.
So in the other budgets, it's Fund 151 debt service, 152 rural school debt service, and 156 high school debt service. These are pretty much all our bond payments that we are budgeted to make this year, and revenue that we are receiving. And the general capital projects budget, 171, and the educational capital projects fund, 177. These are just revenue and expenditures are the same in both those budgets at the end.
Do we have a motion?
I make that motion to approve.
Commissioner White moves to approve those items as approved. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Bochamp. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Motion carried. Library budget.
Actually, solid waste.
Oh, I'm sorry, did I skip
Isn't it?
one?
I think so. So the solid waste budget is $79 surplus based on revenues and expenditures. Some of the expenditures, right now we have an RFP out for a host fee agreement for the landfill services. That could affect this budget, but we're not gonna have it in time. We need to approve this budget before we're gonna have that bid. there's a possibility that we could have a larger surplus to possibly $35,000 in the red. So it's not a huge difference, and we have the fund balance to cover any kind of a deficit. And of course, we would gladly take a surplus, but that will affect this budget. But I do feel it's necessary to go ahead and approve the solid waste budget, because we're not going to have these numbers before June 30th or to start the new budget season. So I've been kind of holding off on this budget for those numbers, but it's not going to happen before.
Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Commissioner Smallridge moves to approve the solid waste budget as presented. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner White. Any discussion?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Wando.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Robbie, I thought I heard you say there's RFP going out
It already is out.
for,
Host fee agreement for landfill services. And we can't really talk about the bid process, you know, that a whole lot, because it is a current RFP and a bid, so. But we do have that. That is going to change the numbers for this year for solid waste.
I understand we can't talk about it,
Yes.
but I would like to know more about the RFP as a commissioner.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to be able to see the RFP. I'd like to know the dates of the RFP. I'd like to know the terms of the RFP. I'd like to research that. You know, since 2006, the thing kind of just scoots by. And we don't ever, from my perspective, I may be wrong, Commissioner White may have a different perspective, but don't really ever get a chance to look at the business, I'll call it, or the agreement. I'd like to have all 16 commissioners have a look at it, and I'm not advocating we're going to change anything, but I'd certainly like to know what's going out and what's coming in. And you know, I think there's been a couple of meetings of the solid waste that have been missed for various reasons, but you know, it kind of surprises me that things like this don't come before the full commission, Mr. Chairman. That you know, that was a comment on the budget, so you hear about it. Otherwise, we wouldn't know. So I appreciate your comment. I'd like to know about it. And I don't know, Mr. Chairman, if I need to make a motion or go to another meeting, operations, and ask for it, but I'd like to get this information so I can take a look at it. Certainly won't discuss it, but I'd like to learn about it. So, and that's going out when?
Well, in the, Mayor knows more about this than me.
So all of that is public, and the RFP, this is for the landfill. So this isn't waste, this isn't hauling of waste or operation of convenience centers. So the prior agreement with the county was a married was a married contract that was a host agreement and a disposal agreement. We separated those, so the host agreement is separate, and then we have gone out to RFP for the acceptance of county waste. And the reason we did that is to generate more competition and more bidders. If you only negotiate with one, you're kind of locked in. But that is public, it is posted. Catherine Ajmeri sent that. I cannot even remember the number of what she did was pull down a number of potential bidders. They have a commodities code that's in that industry, and so she sent it out. I can't remember, we can distribute that to you. And then other potential bidders that Jeff identified were added. She typed those into that list. And I think what Robbie just means is we can't talk a lot about what's happening, but
Yeah.
it's obvious. I mean, that is definitely public. It's public to anybody who wants to go look at it.
I'll have
And we can
Catherine.
distribute that link. Catherine can get that to all of you all.
So did it go through purchasing?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Jay reviewed everything. Catherine,
So as an item on the purchasing agenda?
well, RFPs are just, don't go on agendas. I mean, what will come to you all will be when they're bids that are submitted, and hopefully we have more than one, which we've had, you know, in the past, to my knowledge, there's only been one. And
Right.
hopefully we get more than that.
I like what you're saying, Mayor, I'm not disputing that, but, you know, Commissioner Smallridge wisely, probably 3 or 4 months ago, asked to get all the agendas to all the commissioners, even if you're not on the committee, so we can kind of understand what's going on. But if you're saying it wasn't on the purchasing agenda, we wouldn't have seen it then either. So, and I guess what you're saying is RFPs don't necessarily have to go to the agendas.
Right.
But something to this degree, I think would be very important. You know, we're getting kind of full up there, and I'm trying to, and I hear different conflicting reports that it can go another 25 years, and
Right.
I know there's just a lot of moving parts. I like to
There
learn
are,
about it.
and so posted, and this is also public, so, you know, I think Catherine posted an addendum on there to clarify, you know, we're looking at 20-year life expectant, you know, to be able to do business with the county, and that's all spelled out in the bid, and they have to prove, you know, there's gonna be a verification process in there in proving that, either existing capacity or permitted capacity, and then if that, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but that's in that addendum, and that will be at that link as well. The meetings that have been canceled have been we are required every year to do, and I know you were chairman for a while, so you probably remember that annual report that we have to document all the numbers, diversion from the landfill. And so we have had to do 2 extensions. One of those is because there was a quarterly report, inaccurate reporting. Like, we can only see what the landfill puts in. They report directly to the state. We don't have access to that. And there was an error in their number. And so that's why that has been put off, is to get those final numbers. And we have to actually ask authority from the state to get an extension, and we had to spell out what are the issues. Oak Ridge, City of Oak Ridge, Patrickburg also was having some issues, and so we had to forestall our report in order to get those final numbers from them, so that our report is accurate. So that's what those meeting cancellations are about.
No, that's fine. I mean, I would wonder, even if we had the meetings, would we have talked about the RFP for this? I don't know. So I didn't mean to imply that there was no meetings to hide something.
Yeah.
That's not the intent of my comment. The intent of my comment is I've been a commissioner here since 2006 and never seen a bid come through on this. And you said there was one once before, but they seem to kind of slide by. And I'd like to kind of
Sure.
take a gander at it. So, Mr. Chairman, the reason I'm asking these questions is I'd like to know, it says revenues, $2,999,257. The revenue for the solid waste comes from what streams? I
Property
guess the
tax.
host fee, and then, what's the other one?
There is property tax collections in there too.
Yes, that's it, the taxes. So, and you may have provided this to me before, Robbie, and I apologize, but I'd like to see the revenue stream.
Sure.
A little more detail, and, you know, I want to see where the 2 million is made up of and where it's coming from, and,
I can send that to you, and I'll have Catherine send out the RFP to everyone. I think we posted on the website.
RFPs are posted on the county website, if you go to the purchasing department. And I just pulled that one up while I was sitting here, so that one went out on April 21st, and the addition, the mayor's spoke up, went out May 1st.
April 21st, and then an addendum, May 1st? Okay, thank you.
But all bids are posted. You can get all the bids.
Okay. Thank you. So if I could just get that revenue, I'll support this budget as presented, and then,
I'll send that to you tomorrow.
thank you, Mr. Chairman, I
Yes, sir.
appreciate the time.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Motion carried.
Okay, the next fund is the library budget, Fund 115. Their revenues are at $678,695. Most of that is property tax and city contributions, and their expenditures are $659,665. I did freeze the revenue from last year. I haven't added new property tax to that just because libraries do have a maintenance of effort. We have to, according to the maintenance of effort, we have to fund what we funded last year, or we can lose support from the state regional office, which offers training, some monetary, and IT support. So, but I did freeze that. Our property tax collection, our contributions have went up. I don't know that y'all want me to freeze that. I can. The property tax would be more. The revenues would be more if I hadn't have froze what last year's was. I think 624. Just in property, they have other collections. Like I said, the cities give, I think, around $80,000 to the libraries, but our property collections were 524. Excuse me, but I just need to there's been some hesitation about the library budget, and I just need a motion to accept or reject, or however y'all want to handle their budget.
I make a motion, we reject it until I get a little bit more information about some things that I'm interested in. And one question, what percentage of their budget is county money?
Most of their budget is county funded.
Percentage?
I don't know. Let me see.
75%?
Hold on one second. Out of $678,000 in revenue, 526 are from the county budget. So all but 150,000.
So if we don't do the maintenance of effort, you say we're gonna lose some benefits from
We could
Frank?
lose, the maintenance of effort states in it that if you don't fund and appropriate what you did last year, then the state regional office, which is the office right across the street from the library for the region, you could lose state funding, which is about $15,000 for the county budget. They would probably come and pull anything they've ever bought. They can, in support of the libraries. You'd lose their IT. You could lose their IT support, and they do all the librarian trainings at that office. So, which
They do also provide electronic resources to the state library.
associate, yeah.
So there's not necessarily monetary value placed on that, but there are services that the state provides.
I'll stand by my motion.
Commissioner White moves to reject the library budget. Do we have a second?
What, was that the motion to reject the budget?
Yes, sir.
I'll
I thought-
second.
I thought you said you wanted to hold off, but maybe I misunderstood.
I think you asked a follow-up question as far as the maintenance of effort rule. I'll second that motion. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no.
No.
So let's have a hand vote. Those in favor, raise your hand. It's 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4 have voted no, so that motion fails.
Okay.
So do we have another motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the fiscal year 2023 library budget to keep up with the maintenance effort as required. I so move.
Motion made by Commissioner Wandell to approve the library's budget. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Smallridge. Any discussion? My discussion is, I would like to amend the motion to reduce code 432 in their budget, which is currently at $31,531, which is the code they use to purchase books. So I'll make that in a motion to amend. Do we have a second on that motion?
That would do what, Mr. Chairman?
It would remove the money currently in their budget to be able to purchase books.
Well, I understand that.
Yep. As far as the maintenance of effort stuff, I'll refer to our fine finance department to answer that question.
I mean, if they moved 32,000 from purchase of books to another code, then we still have a maintenance of effort. So, in my opinion, so
So the maintenance of
they
effort
just
would
wouldn't
remain.
be a library with no books.
They wouldn't be able to buy any more books. Do we have a second on the amendment?
I'll second it.
Second by Commissioner White. Any discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, all in favor of the amendment, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no.
No.
Hand vote, all in favor of the amendment? 2-2. Motion fails. So now we're back on the original motion by Commissioner Wandale, seconded by Commissioner Smallridge to approve the library budget. Any further discussion on the original motion? Mayor Frank.
Just for clarification, are you just, in order to maintain the maintenance of effort, are you just keeping the amount the same? Because the cities have kept their amount the same for as far back as I've been in office. The cities have never increased their amount. So maybe it's time for the cities to increase their amount and the county to freeze ours for, it would still keep the county in compliance with MOE, with the maintenance of effort. But I think with inflation over 10 years, the cities could maybe start picking up that additional cost. It would maintain our contribution, but it would not allow the growth in the property tax rate. So if you look at the growth over the years, it's all been on the county taxpayer.
What would be your suggestion?
Just to maintain the funding limit as it is now to meet our maintenance of effort agreement, which would just be equal to what the cities have been doing for the last 10 years.
With
So-
no increase for the county's part.
Correct, correct.
And that's what I'm showing in this budget
Yeah.
currently too.
Yeah.
As presented, there's no increase in our,
So this would meet the mayor's
yes.
Yep.
recommendation.
Yes.
I mean, I hope
I mean,
that's
it would
what
be
my
a good
motion is.
compromise, you know, to,
Is that the way we understand the motion?
That's what
Is
you
that-
would
And
like.
that meets your needs or your suggestion, Mayor, the way we have the motion? Thank you, that makes sense, thank you.
Because now we know under the state that they're supposed to be providing IT.
They do, yes.
We do give suggestions and advice and phone calls of that nature.
Could we summarize the motion, the impact on,
So the motion on the floor, as I understand it by Commissioner Wandale, is to approve the library's budget as presented.
With the maintenance of the effort as required. So we are just funding the library, the county is funding the same portion we funded last year into as far as revenues go.
so we're not removing money for books? and-
No. That didn't pass. Yeah.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. No. We'll take a hand vote. Those in favor of the motion passing? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5-1, motion passes. Okay. Next is, am I on track, tourism budget?
It is, yes.
Okay.
With a hotel motel tax, 662,671 in revenues, and expenditures, 664,084.
I make a motion, we approve it as presented.
Motion made by Commissioner White to approve the tourism budget as presented. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Smallridge. Any discussion?
Can I just ask one question? Robbie, does this include that additional money that we talked about for the lease?
No,
Okay,
I didn't change anything.
okay.
I thought in our email, I thought would address it later.
What
Like
money are you
next-
talking about?
Well, I mean, it'll need to be in place July 1, so I thought we were going to address it in this budget.
Then we might need to, we can, but I would need to, I would need to change the budget. I didn't change the budget
Okay,
any from what
okay.
you
Well,
presented.
and I mean, I'll
'Cause
just,
I emailed you and asked you that, you didn't I didn't.
oh, I'm sorry, I thought I
Take it
did.
that way.
Okay, I'm sorry, I did. So, we are in the process of trying to initiate a lease on a property. So right now is scheduled, the auction for our building is scheduled for May 25th. And so we are trying to initiate a lease that will start July 1. And then moving expenses, so we're asking for an additional $20,000 to be in our expenditures, and then the deficit would be covered by our fund balance for next fiscal year.
So this budget proposal isn't ready to be voted on?
Well, if that's, I can add that, and it makes the expenditure 684,084, which is a deficit of 21,413.
It would just be a lot easier if that was in place on July 1, so that when we execute the lease, we'll have the funding in place instead of having to come back and go through a budget amendment process.
So Commissioner White, with that understanding, are you okay with your motion to approve with that addition?
I am not for them leaving the building that they're at, where they're at. I'd like to see you stay up on the 4-lane. So,
Withdraw your motion?
too complicated for a country boy.
I agree.
Well, I mean, to simplify it, the vote was already decided by commission to put it for auction. So on May the 25th,
I'll
if,
stand by my motion.
All right.
I approve.
All right, Commissioner Morridge, you okay with the second on that with the new information?
I think so.
Any further discussion?
I have a question for
Commissioner
Bobby.
Bochamp?
Being in the deficit, does that hurt us with the comptroller's office?
No, not as
Okay.
long as they have the fund balance.
Okay, I just want to make sure that it's
And-
not going to give us a
And
black
again,
eye.
a deficit budget doesn't mean that we'll end the year in a deficit. It just, their projected expenditures are more than revenues.
Okay.
And 9 times out of 10, we don't spend all of our expenditures, the full amount anyway. You know, it's hard to budget the exact amount of your expenditures every year for every budget line item, so there's gonna be some leeway there.
Any further? Commissioner Wandell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Did we ever get the question answered, when the building sells, where will the funds reside? Which, is it gonna reside in the 128 fund, or is it gonna reside in the undesignated fund balance?
Well, Jay's currently working on a opinion about that question. And he will have that, I'm sure, anytime. Before, I would say next commission meeting, but I can't guarantee that. But that is where we're at with that.
Well, if the building sells, just to pick out a number, 600 grand, I mean, we're gonna be doubling the budget if it goes back into the tourism
It would
budget.
go into revenue code into tourism, possibly, yes. If the opinion was that it could be split with general fund, then part would go to tourism, part would go to the general fund.
Who's making those decisions?
Audit, I asked the question to audit. Audit was in the opinion that it could be split. If you look at the property, when it was given to the county, it was given to Anderson County. It wasn't given to tourism. Jay has all that, but audit ultimately leaves an opinion up to our county law director, and they will stand behind that.
I'm in support of the tourism, but we're taking up the budget. And we're getting ready to vote on the presented budget, and then if not long after it could potentially be before we even pass the official budget, July 1, enacted, that is, you could, in essence, double the budget and have, 1.2 million in there if it all went back into your code. But, I think what I'm saying, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to have some direction. I haven't ever had the mayor's input, and I'm not blaming her, but, she's in charge, or in a lot of ways responsible for the overall budget of this county, and I'd like to hear her input on what she'd like to see in the tourism, what her thoughts are, ideas about the money if we sold. I mean, I don't know if she has an opinion, maybe she don't, but I'd like to hear it.
Kind of go along with that train of thought, funding and where the proceeds go from for the sale and everything. Robbie, refresh my memory, what is ACETA
Anderson County Economic Development,
and what do they do?
they promote, economic development in the county. They look for businesses, industry.
Do we give them any money for doing that?
The county appropriates $124,500, I believe.
Out of the general fund?
Out of the general fund.
Could hotel motel tax money be used for that?
That would be considered an eligible expense. for hotel motel, yes.
So-
Did he say eligible?
Yes. So,
I believe, economic
Right now,
development.
as it's stated, it's tourism. Their main responsibility is industrial recruitment.
because I'd like to
I
start,
mean,
I'm kind of seeing the direction you're going in, Commissioner Wandale, and I kind of like, it's kind of opening up my eyes a little bit about how far down that road we can go. Can we get a clarification on if we can put hotel motel tax, and start using that to pay a CETA?
I can ask, yes.
So that would have to come out of the tourism budget, though, in order to do that?
That would need to be moved to the tourism budget, yes.
How much is that again, the annual contribution?
We put that in our appropriation resolution every year. It's $124,500.
And that would free up that amount from our general fund, is that correct?
Yes. We also pay the Chamber of Commerce $30,000 for retail recruitment was, I guess, was the original contract or agreement was for.
and you would have to look at the private act also.
Yes, the private act, is what I was thinking, Stephanie, yeah.
Robbie, I know we were trying to get these approved today, but could we confirm that before we vote on
Yes,
this budget?
we could.
Would that be appropriate?
We can leave this, we don't have, we have some time still, yes. Especially since this budget stands on its own. It's hotel motel tax. It doesn't affect the tax rate.
Would that be okay with everybody if we got some research on that first before we voted on this, or does everybody kind of want to vote on this today?
I'm good with waiting. I'd like to know, I mean, you bring up another point, but I want to, I'd like to know if the building sells. It's going to sell.
Those proceeds as well,
Where,
yeah.
where's it gonna go? Where, I mean, because that's, I don't know how we could pass a budget if,
We don't know how much is going to be in there and what it can be spent on.
Well, I mean, just for clarification, the items that you're voting on right now does not have anything to do with the sale of the building. So once the sale doesn't affect this budget whatsoever. So we're not budgeting, we're not using funds or banking on the funds that you all are getting from the sale of the building at this point. Our fund balance is there. The money that we're talking about, the extra $20,000 would come from the existing fund balance, not from any revenue from the sale of the building. So just to clarify
no,
at this point.
I understand that. I guess, you know, it does have something to do with this building because you're gonna be, tourism's gonna be going into another building, which is, you mentioned $20,000. I recognize that the $20,000 is not gonna come from the sale of the building, but because of the sale of the building, we have to put another 20,000 in. You
Well,
know.
and in this will be kind of a reset year, and years to come, that will just come out of our revenue.
Yeah.
So it just, we're at the end of this year, going into next year. So that's why I'm suggesting that it comes, instead of us changing our budget and trying to find it this year, take it from our existing fund balance, and then come into next year, I'll be better prepared to figure out where those funds are gonna come from in our existing budget.
Well, if we're needing to go ahead and vote on this tonight, I would be making a motion that we amend it to redirect the $124,500 to come from the hotel motel tax out of the tourism budget and for the $30,000. Now, if we want to wait and get clarification on that, then we probably need to wait to vote on the whole thing.
I think you need clarification on that, because that's not the way, right now, the way that the private act is written, it comes to tourism, 90% goes to the tourism council, 10% goes to Anderson County Chamber. So
So if we
by
need to wait-
definition, industrial recruitment activities are not tourism activities.
So Commissioner White, with this new information, I'll ask you, I guess, the second time, do you want your motion to go ahead and stand, or would you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Commissioner Smallridge, you're okay with your second standing?
So the motion was to accept what was presented tonight.
Plus an additional 20,000.
The 20,000.
Oh, you added the 20, I'm sorry.
Because she's gonna need the 20,000 when she moves into the building. the
To
new
another
building.
facility.
I'm willing to wait. They do have to have a budget. I'm willing to wait, you know, so that they're ready to go come July 1.
Okay, so your second stands.
No,
You're withdrawing your second?
I'll withdraw the second.
Okay.
And
So the motion by Commissioner White to approve the budget with the additional 20,000, do we have a second on it? Any second? Last call for a second. Motion dies for lack of a second. Any further action on the approval of this budget? So we got to the same
It's-
place, just a different route. Mayor Frank?
I just wanted to, Commissioner Wandell asked some questions, so now that you've put it off, what I'll do is organize those thoughts in response to your questions and get that submitted to you all.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yep.
So just so I have some direction, are we coming back to the next budget committee meeting and discussing
Say we
the
have to.
tourism budget with some, maybe if Jay's here, he can shed some light on some of the questions you all had?
Do you need that in the motion, Mr. Chairman, or are we good with the
I
questions?
think we're good not
Okay.
doing
I
either,
think the process will pick it up.
the way the process of the budget. Me and Stephanie might could work together some too on making, just looking at the budget.
Okay.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Having-
Go ahead, Robbie.
We have EMS up next. EMS, as you know, presented 3 budgets. There he is, I'll let him tell it.
Well, and we've talked before. So we've presented the 3 budgets. One was keeping things as they are currently. The second one was adding 2 additional personnel, taking one of our current day trucks, making it a paramedic staffed, everyday daytime truck. Option 1 was adding 4 members and a personnel to help with buildings and grounds, but of course, that's been addressed by other means. So that request would actually eliminate that part of it, but it would add 4 people to add a daytime 12-hour ALS truck in addition to what we already have.
So a no increase budget's out of balance, 389, 699. And I have a couple of suggestions for EMS. Number one, Nathan's department back in 2009 started paying $50,000 for fleet services for labor and parts, the only department that pays for labor and parts in the county, and $100,000 for dispatch, none of which we put in revenue, never have. We put directly into the code. The sheriff's office budget's the full dispatch salary, so I don't really see that it's necessary for EMS. I'm looking at ways we can cut budget without tax increases or moving tax monies around. I don't really see the need for EMS to pay either one of these fees. I mean, it was an agreement. There's not there was never a MOU or anything like that. Just the county commission voted in 2009 while they were a 205 fund, because back then they were making money. We were looking at their true expenses as a budget, as a fund, but we're not making money in EMS anymore. That's long gone. So we need to figure out ways to support EMS if we want to continue having this service for the county. That would be one of my recommendations. I don't think that would affect the budget in general fund. It would help EMS. We don't count on that money as far as revenue. That money ends up rolling into fund balance every year, as at the end of the year in June 30th. That would be the first recommendation I would have. And our audit, every year we have trouble with this with audit. They do not like the way that we do this with it rolling into a code that we make the money and put in a automatically an expenditure code. So, I mean, it would solve some issues there as well, in my opinion. So fleet is 60,000, I apologize. Dispatch 100,000. That would free up $160,000 of funds in the EMS budget that we wouldn't need to look for how to fund. That we're just turning around and paying the general fund budget. And this year we did a lot of that we budgeted that with ARP funds. We gave them $280,000. We kind of put a Band-Aid on last year's budget, or current year budget, 22-23, and so we're at that point again where we got to do something, or if we want to put another Band-Aid on it, we have ARP funds, we can do that.
So Robert, that 160 would come off of that 389?
It would, and that would bring that down to 229, 699 would be the budget. That's without any increase in salary or anything. But that would bring that budget deficit down to around 230,000.
I think that'd be a good move.
I just need a motion, or if y'all are in favor of that. Or
I'll make that a motion and see where it
So
lands.
your motion is to,
Take the fleet and dispatch money, 60,000 K and 100,000 K, out of the budget as Robbie was talking about there.
so remove,
That money just goes back over into the budget anyway,
Okay.
into the general fund.
so this isn't approving his budget yet. This is just an item to take care of, to
Right.
help us make that decision.
That's a suggestion that Robbie made.
Okay.
So the motion is just to remove those two items. Okay.
Right. Okay, so, and just to confirm, Commissioner White moves to eliminate the EMS payment to fleet management for cost and from the dispatch costs.
both of those are payments to the general fund.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not really paying fleet and dispatch, we're just paying the general fund budget. It's pretty much, we're taking tax property money from the general fund, from EMS, and paying the general fund with the same funds. It's kind of,
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Bochamp. Any discussion? Just to confirm, this doesn't reduce the fleet management budget
It does
nor the
not.
sheriff's office budget?
has no effect.
Okay. It's just pretty much an accounting. You mentioned audit a while ago. Audit knows that we've been doing it this way.
Yeah, we've been doing this since 2009.
What's their opinion of this?
They, last year, questioned, especially the fleet payment a lot. It goes into a fleet code that we don't really have anything coming out of, and it's like zero budget. Then we put $60,000 in, and it just kind of throws their audit numbers off. They would prefer we do it a different way,
All right.
which
So
that's a possibility.
This doesn't reduce the sheriff's office budget or fleet management's budget.
It does not.
Sheriff, Captain Sharp, Chief Galloway, y'all have any comments on that? Does that make sense to you guys?
Just like you told me earlier, if it doesn't reduce the budget, then we're fine with it.
Okay. All right, and John Vickery, I don't see him out there to ask him. Mayor, your understanding?
It doesn't go into, you all are funding your budget.
Yes.
Okay,
We're
All right.
funding both of those budgets fully. We're just getting these payments from
Gotcha.
EMS
all
on
right.
top of that.
This is like most reimbursement, it goes into the general fund, and it's
Oh,
up to us to distribute it back out how we see fit.
But am I correct? This would impact the general fund, is that right?
The rollover money, possibly, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
it.
What we get at the end of the year when the books are closed. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Motion carried. So that just reduced a little bit. So now we're back on the proposal for the EMS Budget Fund 118. And there are three options.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to approve the no increase budget for EMS.
Commissioner Bochamp moves to approve the no increase budget for EMS. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner White. Any discussion? Hearing none, all, I'm sorry.
I was just,
Go ahead.
so this would make the request reduced by 160,000, is that correct?
That was my understanding. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Robbie?
That is correct. We would still need to, we need to make some moves for EMS as far as funding this budget or their fund, with either moving a penny, possible sales tax, moving some sales tax money from the general fund to, and highway possibly to EMS. Nathan could increase fees. We could use ARP funds again. We have several options, but eventually but this budget season, we're gonna have to do something to fund. And this is not even considering giving their employees any kind of a raise at 229. So that's, another obstacle.
Mr. Chairman, it seemed like we could have had access to these options before we come up to this vote here.
I think he gave them out, was
I
it last
submitted,
month or month before last?
Well,
Well,
I'm-
actually, technically, I submitted these options in February.
Okay.
And we've had more than one discussion about, we had a workshop that we discussed these as well. So, and then other budget committees, it has been brought up, Commissioner White. I apologize we didn't get that to you, but that's why we do present multiple options, because we are trying to add more ambulances on the road to help with response. Option 3, which is the no increase, keeps it as it is today. In regards to response capabilities and trucks on the road.
Commissioner Bochamp.
And Robbie, I just wanna clarify, the reason why I'm doing this is just to pass this budget. I know we're gonna have to deal with it, we got a huge deficit going on here. We're gonna have to deal with this at some point, even after July, but I just wanna get their budget through right now. Cause we got a lot of budgets to get through. Let them get through this, and then we're gonna have to seriously take a look at what's going on with EMS and figure some things out to what route we're gonna take with them.
I agree.
Good point.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Motion carried.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Commissioners, before we get to the sheriff's office is the next one, correct, Robbie?
Yes.
Okay. Would you mind passing these out for me, please? Before we begin discussions on the sheriff's office budget, I have prepared a memo to each one of you all. Robbie, if you would please also, and I'm not trying to make you my assistant, but you could give one to Sheriff Barker, please. This letter is dated today to the sheriff from myself, and I'll read it in its entirety. Sheriff, I hope this memo finds you well. I want to begin by expressing my gratitude to you and the command staff for leading the sheriff's office in a manner in which you do. I'm proud to be a small part of the department and the efforts we put forth every day. As you already know, I've served the people of this county for 25 years now as a deputy sheriff and don't regret a mile I've traveled for them. As you also know, I have been blessed to serve the people as an elected member of County Commission for the last 6 years and feel blessed to serve in that capacity as well. This afternoon, the Budget Committee will consider the Sheriff's Office upcoming year's budget request. I feel this request represents adequate funding for the continued high service that you demand from your department, and I support the request. Current law allows me to vote in favor of the request, even though it benefit me financially, as long as I publicly announce I'm employed by the Sheriff's Office. Even though I feel most already know my employment status, and even though the public declaration would allow me to vote and receive the benefits, I've decided on a better course of action for myself and for the county as a whole. I hereby request you exclude me from the upcoming year's budget pay increases when filing payroll information to the Finance Department. I have CC'd Finance Director Robbie Holbrook as well. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me at any time. I'd ask the Finance Director to enter that memo into the minutes of today's meeting. Having said that, let's begin discussions on the Sheriff's Office budget. Sheriff Barker, or Chief Galloway, or Captain Sharp, or all of yous, or?
Can I just explain a
whomever?
couple of things first?
Yes, go ahead.
What I have in the budget. So budgeted revenues at 33 for the general fund. You can come on up, Sheriff. It won't take me long.
That's my cell phone, these guys can slip.
Budgeted revenues are 33,845,446. That's with every revenue increase that the sheriff is expecting. We added dispatch just yesterday. So this has changed probably a little of what you have in your packet, because I added 65,000 with the new MOUs for the city of Rocky Top and Norris. And 911 is also paying more money now. The budgeted expenditures at 33,904,875. That has every increase the sheriff has asked for in it already. The only thing that's actually not in this budget is the 7,000 plus that District Attorney Clark was approved for tonight. So that's a small increase. And our budget deficiency is at 59,429. So, I just wanted to let you all know that everything's in this budget, including all the sheriff's requests for each of their budgets. Because they presented one budget, I went ahead and put that in the budget. So that's where we're at as far as the general fund goes with our totals.
Commissioner Smallridge?
Robbie, there is, am I right, there's nothing in there for general increase?
There is, for none of the other employees, no, just the sheriff employees so far, yes.
Thanks.
Do we have a motion on any of the budget proposals from the sheriff's office?
I do have a couple suggestions. So yesterday, I talked to a couple of the 3 or 4 of the sheriff's department employees, or Chief Galloway, Sharp, and Owens, and I just made a suggestion maybe if we included all the salary increases but cut all the other increases, which they didn't want that to happen, but they did have a suggestion. We do have a new nurse mental health position in the budget that's like an additional $250,000. We're going to try. They want to try that this year to see if it brings down the cost of our detention facility prisoner medical cost, possibly, because a lot of times at night when we have issues, they have to send them to the emergency room, which costs a lot more than if we had a nurse on duty. So their suggestion maybe was if we could use ARP funds to fund this for the first year as a trial run. So that would take $250 out of the budget, plus the $90,000 that's budgeted for additional cost for medical bills, another $90,000. So that would, if we could use ARP funds, we could take $300. We'd cut that 90 out, use the $250 for the ARP funds, cut $340,000 out of the budget of general fund. So our budget deficit from 59,000 went to almost plus 300. Well, I have it at plus 280,571 if we made that move. But and I think that would be a good move because they're not sure this will work.
Yeah, I think it's wise coming up like that because we don't know. We know the medical jail cost. The medical cost of the jail is the one that is absolutely like herding cats. So this gives us the ability to try it, but yet doesn't lock us into anything because we don't know what the impact's going to have, but we definitely believe it's needed or we wouldn't have asked for it.
So do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Commissioner Bochamp moves to approve the sheriff's office budget proposal.
With the amended, using the ARP
Okay.
and withdrawing the 90, right?
And seconded by Commissioner Vandegrift.
I got one question. Is this
Commissioner Bochamp.
13%?
That's the
That's
average.
the average. Some will get less, some will get a little more.
What you presented to us for the
Yes,
longevity
the pay
and all
scale
that.
stays intact.
That's what I
It's,
wanted.
just to kind of briefly touch on that again, it's a hybrid plan. What we're doing is scrapping the old steps from 2007 that was funded in 08. And this hybrid plan has 3 significant pieces to it. It allows us to hand out step raises periodically, which is could be 2 years or 3 years, depending on where you fall on that. We have money set aside for merit pay, where we recognize and reward good service, and we talked about how we go about getting an accurate evaluation for our deputies, right? So we've got those pieces in place already, and then the third is the longevity aspect of it. So individually, it's small increments, but when you put them all together, it gives our deputies something to work for and to be rewarded for staying with us and providing high quality service.
I'd like to say one thing, and this is just, about 4 or 5 months ago, the HR Advisory Board, which is made up of all the elected officials, myself and I think that's it, Jay maybe, but they started working on a longevity plan for the whole county. I almost would be in favor of cutting that piece out and trying to have a uniform longevity plan for every employee in the county. And they were almost ready to bring that to the budget committee. In fact, they are ready. I told them to wait till budget was over because I didn't want us to have too much to think about. And, but I'm not against any of this stuff. I just think that the longevity piece, I don't know why the sheriff's department deserves that and every employee in the county doesn't deserve that. And I think it would be good to have one policy instead of a separate.
Yeah, so, you know, and Robbie's right, all county employees should have some form of longevity plan, but again, as I've said before, and I know I hate to separate us from the rest of the county employees, but again, you guys pay us to do violence on your behalf. We're the ones that are, you know, dragging the ditches, and we're the ones that are putting ourselves in harm's way. Not to take away from any other department, but again, you know, the example I gave, we're the only county employee that if we get into a fist fight, we got about 15, 20 minutes to get ourselves squared away and get back on post or back out on the road. Where if it happened in any other department, absolutely any other department, they would get the rest of the week off with pay, and the 2 employees that watched the fight would probably get a couple of days off too from being traumatized from what they saw. Just this week at the jail, we've investigated a ton of threats. We've recovered shanks that the inmates have made. That's just part of what we do. Yesterday, we've been dealing with, and today as well, these rash of hoax, active shooter threats. We have a very serious job. And as I told you guys when we presented this, I think it has to be, for me personally, where this makes it work is as presented, okay? And I'm not opposed to whatever you guys do for the rest of the county employees. And again, not to belittle them, not at all. But guys, it's tough. And I have a true appreciation because I have operations and I have corrections. And I have to worry about both of them. So I get when you guys have to worry about all these departments. But we're truly, truly different. I mean, there's just no two ways about it. And I think, as presented, this budget is what makes us competitive, and it's what makes us have an opportunity to retain and attract the quality of employees we want. We already know Roane County just passed and went to 51,000 walking in the door. I use that as an example when it was at 44, right? But we could have veteran employees tonight who have spent 15, 20 years with us, go to Roane County, take an entry-level position, and receive a significant raise right off the bat. I need this as we presented it. And honestly, I know it's tough, and it's nerve-wracking, Dr. Smallridge, because you do have to worry about everyone else. But unfortunately, I really, in my heart of hearts, and I wouldn't say it if I didn't believe it, we have to be looked at differently, just by the nature of our work. You know, I gave you the example last time. We have six deputies who their lives are going to be changed forever, potentially, because they've come in contact with Hep C blood, fighting inmates or arrestees on the side of the road. The day I told you that night, we picked up our seventh. We right now have a deputy who's had a order of protection filed against him by an inmate, making the most outlandish allegations you could imagine. And what's that about? The only thing this inmate wants is to get a court document out there that is going to be a permanent record making these insane allegations against him. The most recent lawsuit that was filed, my guys are being sued personally, not just in their official capacity, but personally. We ask a lot of these folks. I think it's time.
Any further discussion?
Yeah.
Commissioner Wanda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sheriff, I don't disagree with anything you're saying. I still have trouble with the merit raise. I still think that is subjective, and I don't think it's, I don't run the sheriff's office, but I think it's a subjective payment. And, you know, I feel like there's gonna be some problems with that in the future when one individual might not think they're liked well enough. And you know, I'd rather just see a spread across longevity and just a pay raise. The merit stuff, I don't know. I just see problems with that. That's just me.
Yeah, that's a fair point, and we took that in consideration, okay? So, as an administrator, step raises are the easiest, right? We know at this year mark you make this, but what we know is that when you have two employees come in at the exact same time, and one does just enough, right? He ain't dragging the ditches, he ain't providing, going the extra mile. He is literally answering calls and just handling his business just to stay out of trouble. And you've got another one who is representing you well, volunteering for things. And we gave multiple examples where our deputies take money out of their own pocket to provide for food, to provide for our shopping with the sheriff, things of that nature. Those folks need to be recognized. And there's nothing quicker that will damper a good employee than watching them make the exact same money but putting forth twice the effort. And so that's where we think that comes in. And again, if you guys will look at what we presented, the numbers are not that high with these jumps, right? And not everybody's going to get a merit raise. The subjectivity of it all, 100%. You have to watch that. It's something we're going to have to coach. And one of the things that we talked about was where when we do these yearly evaluations, one of the problems we saw was, for example, someone on patrol, we said it's time to do evaluations, haven't done it at the end of the week. They're going to be doing 7 to 8 evaluations in addition to all their duties, right? Corrections sergeant will probably do somewhere between, 13 and 15 and have to have it done in addition to all their duties. Well, it's not, one, you're not really getting a true, you're not getting any kind of deep thought about it. Nobody's really, they're just trying to get it all done. So what we proposed was we changed it from setting this time of year's evaluations to where we go to their anniversary date when they hired on with us. And then that's going to be, we believe, probably no more than 2, maybe 3, if it's just a strange lot of luck. So it gives the supervisor an opportunity to really sit down and put some thought into it. In addition to that, to try to overcome and remove the subjectivity of it all, they're going to sit down with their supervisor. So a sergeant would sit down with a lieutenant, they would go over, and then the two of them would get with the employee and present it and see what we're talking about. Because what we have to have is some real truth there, okay? And why that is paramount in my eyes is that in our, just by the nature of our business, you do not want, one, particularly the national climate, you don't want to say anything to your fellow deputy who's going to kind of put their dauber in dirt or bring them down, okay? In addition to that, you do not want to sit down and tell them how they're deficient in certain areas, and then 2 hours later, you're getting snot kicked out of you in Foxtrot or on 61, and that very deputy who you just told 2 hours before, they're not very good at their job, is the one coming to help you. So that lends itself to not real evaluations, okay? So that's why we bring in another supervisor, and we sit down and have this discussion. And that way we have to get it, and with it being tied to merit raises, I think we're going to see it. We think we're going to see a better quality performance, and our supervisors know that we have to really think through and be truthful, because we're not going to be handing them out like candy. I can promise you that. I think you'll have I think you, Commissioner Wandell, I think you'll get more complaints about we're too stingy with it than you are about it being unfair. That might be the unfair part about it, that the bar's set too high.
That's why I don't.
I understand.
I mean,
It is absolutely fair question.
So what are we proposing here? Supposed to be in another meeting, and I'm not trying to be rude at all, but I got to chair that one downstairs. But what's which one are we passing here? What's one is the motion
They
on?
only presented one budget.
We don't present one. It's my understanding that what Commissioner Beauchamp's motion was is that we remove the additional cost for the healthcare, fund that through ARP money, and then pull back the 90,000, Robbie,
Yes.
and leave it in the general fund. And then if we get to the point we need that, we'll come back in front of full commission to make that request.
So what's the total amount we're looking at here? Is it the 16, 14, or 15?
Well, it would be that minus the 16,125, 788 minus
So it's the
$340,000.
FY 2024 proposed revenues and expenses
Yes.
budget, $16,125,788. Total
Less
increase,
$340,000.
what's that?
Less
Less
$340,000.
340.
Which that would generate a surplus in the budget of 285.71, which could be used to give other employees raises.
This budget, no, I'm sorry.
That's right.
This budget, do we make the adjustments that were mentioned by one of the deputies about the increase in state-funded? I mean, I remember hearing something that we could probably get $300,000 in potential new revenue.
Yes, we upped all those
The
revenues.
tier 2, or tier 2 status?
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's in here?
We increased the contracted prisoner board to 2.2 million. City coin, another $20,000, I think. We upped the dispatch 65,000 because that's a new revenue we're going to be receiving from the cities and 911. So yes, we went back and put in all those increases for revenue.
So Robbie, you feel like we got the money to do this?
We do have the money to do it, yes.
And how will we fund it?
Property tax, sales tax,
We,
prisoner revenue. I mean, our revenues are up 1.8 million from last year in our from last year's revenue. So we do have new money.
I mean, I'm like Commissioner Smallridge. I'd like to figure out how we're going to take care of all of our people.
Well, I can tell you that.
Okay, but if we go ahead and pass this one,
Yes.
are we still going to be able to do that for the others? Because that's my,
Not
Go ahead and
what-
tell them, Robbie.
Well, I mean, if we cut the 340 out, which we did, that leaves our fund balance at 280,571. To give the employees a 5% raise, the rest of the additional employees, not counting the sheriffs, which already received theirs, 328,073. Right there, we only have a budget deficit of 48,000. But if we redirect the tourism chamber payment and the CETA payment, we're sitting at 435,000 in the general fund. So we have more than enough money to cover a 5% raise in this.
EMS is included in that.
That would be included in a cost of living raise. Now, we would have to work on them, but I do have some ideas that we could do there also. I can bring this back for you next. I would approve the sheriff's, if you want to approve the sheriff's budget next month when we meet, I'll bring back a 5% raise for the additional, for all the rest of the employees and how we can fund the EMS.
Is there going to be any increase in, this was something that was discussed at the fire commission, is there going to be any increase in getting more dispatchers? Do we know?
We talked about that yesterday, and they felt like the problem is they don't have a full staff. It wasn't that they needed more. They only have 5 stations to begin with, Owen said. The problem is not the amount of dispatchers they have. They just haven't had a full staff this whole year. And they finally, I think, had one, and you lost one.
We did, yeah.
Yeah,
What will that salary go from? I know it's kind of low. If we pass this, what would that be increased on that side?
The dispatch salary,
Yeah.
yes. Their increase would be within 26, 28 cents of what Starting Patrol would be, just as it is currently now.
I think the starting pay would be 41,680 for dispatch when it was 34, so that's a pretty good increase.
Okay.
I think we would probably have
better like.
keeping people and hiring.
Yes, I believe that'll help us retain and dispatch and.
Hey, Robert, excuse me, Robert, are you going down to that? Will you handle that for, thank you, sir.
But like Robert was saying, Commissioner Wandell, is we had one of our new class employees from the class previous that had just got on the console on her own, and now this new class training, just as they're getting on the console learning some on-the-job training, one from the previous class turned her notice in, so now we're going to be looking for another one to hire, and I believe we've got 5 applications in this week since we posted. We're getting really close to being fully staffed.
Okay, that's good news. You know, my hope is that we walk out of here, go into the new budget year, and we kind of can remove the stigma of us versus them, no matter where it's at, no matter if it's commission or department heads or, you know, just employees. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all the same. Some do a lot more, Sheriff, you're absolutely right. Some do a lot more and do it for free, volunteers. It's kind of what we do in the county, and I appreciate it. And I want to come out of this with everybody's head held high and going, we're all together, not us versus them, and you know they got taken care of and we didn't, and I want to see us kind of rise up and be the county we should be, period. And not that we're not doing anything. It's just, you know, it just bothers me that we kind of sometimes want to paint ourselves. It's okay to disagree. It's okay to disagree and have candid discussion, but at the end of the day, the workers, and everybody's a worker, but we got a lot of men and women out here working hard and doing the best they can with what they have. And I don't know. I'm ready to vote. If we think we can do this, you know, I'll vote accordingly.
Commissioner Smallridge.
Yeah, Robbie, looking at, I want to be sure, looking at where we are with the budget, everything we've approved to date, and assuming we, including the sheriff's
Yes, sir.
proposal, are we able to give a 5% across the board raise to the remaining people?
In my opinion, yes. Yeah.
Pardon?
Yes.
And where is that money?
It will
Where-
come from the
Where would
same.
we end up with our fund balance and all that?
If we did nothing else to the general fund, we might end up with a $40,000 deficit, budget deficit, which is, we've done $450,000 before since I've been here. So that's not a huge deal. I mean, we approved a $1.4 million deficit for the schools just an hour earlier. So I think we can handle a 5% raise. I do think that we will have more. I think we can make some changes that will create more revenue in the general fund budget with some things we've mentioned tonight. And, but I do think that we can give all the employees, the remaining employees, a 5% raise, yes.
Yeah. Well, I want to understood, I'm not against the sheriff's proposal or the budget. They're very deserving, every one of them. But we've got to look at the big picture.
Right, I
too.
agree.
You know, not just one department, although it's a critical department.
Yes.
So, okay, I feel comfortable with that.
Any further discussion?
I would like to speak.
Mayor Frank.
So, at risk of becoming extremely unpopular with law enforcement, I can't not speak. There are approximately 500 employees on the county side, non-school. The schools keep their raises at a certain amount to try to patch together a budget that increases their salaries. And what I'm hearing is that we're going to put in front of all of the other employees basically a $1.5 million increase for the sheriff's department. And I do want to point out that the sheriff's department receives 100% plus more of the property tax that is collected in Anderson County. So if you look at our what we collect as a county, it is all going to the sheriff's department, and then in addition, the other revenues that are collected. And I only bring that up to say, when Nathan's budget was approved, he pointed out the needs that we have in this county. And no disrespect to the sheriff, I love the sheriff, and he's kind of in my space right now, but but our people also, maybe they don't take on violence, but they're in violent situations, and they do have to get back on the road, and they do have some of the highest rates internationally for suicide. So they are doing a lot of those things, and I'm hearing, and not that I don't trust you, and not that I don't trust Robbie, but I'm hearing, well, we'll make it work for the other employees. Well, we just passed an EMS budget that did not meet all of their needs. It still has a deficit, and we're going to give the sheriff a budget when he only brought one option, and we consistently bring three. And this is just, as the sheriff says, the sharp stick of truth. And I have to do this and say this on behalf of all the other employees, from solid waste to highway department to EMS to all of the folks that are listed on here. And I have been, since I've been in office, a advocate for our jailers. And I will point out that I think jailers should be compensated even more than that are in these presentations, because jailers don't get cars. And there is a compensation side to having a vehicle to take home at night. And I'm not working against this proposal, but what I am saying is I would like to see a commitment to the other employees. And there could be a compromise. For instance, you could fund all the employees having a 7% and make everybody happy instead of one department happy. But that's just what I'm saying here. I'm not personally comfortable with just go ahead and approve theirs, and then we're going to try to come up with what may not be a responsible budget. I don't know. I'm not seeing the numbers in front of me. I like to look at the paperwork, show me the paperwork, and it's very uncomfortable for me to be up here and say all of this. But the sheriff's department is, I think they're 188 employees right now. Again, we've got 500 on in the rest of the county government, not counting the schools. And I just have to advocate for them, and I also have to advocate for the other needs that were presented. And when people, maybe it's not violence, but we're in the life-saving business. So it can be equally as brutal.
I appreciate the mayor's thoughts. I don't take any offense to them. I will tell you this, she brings up some really good points. But at the end of the day, EMS can't get in to save those lives until we tell them the scene is clear and safe. That's really just the truth. They post up and wait on us to tell them it's clear to come in. And that is the difference. We are a hybrid for a county department, right? We're covered by civil service. So our county policies count towards us unless they don't, right? If it's a civil service issue. So we are a unique beast. We are the unicorn of Anderson County. And we're not proposing that be put on a patch or on any kind of banner, but it's the truth. We are different. And I agree. And I know what she's saying makes sense. But at the end of the day, it's market driven, okay? Everyone around us, as I brought up in the workshop, we are paid less than everybody, not just in Anderson County, but regionally. City of Rockwood, $49,900. Now Roane County, $51,000. Walking in the door. If we were losing highway department people, to neighboring counties overpay, you'd have a heck of an argument. But when you look at the totality of it all, unfortunately, we're your ugly sister. And we might be ugly, but we're still your sister, right? And I stand firm on what I've said. And I know it's gut-wrenching for everybody. It ain't pleasant for us.
Commissioner Wandale.
Sheriff, I mean, I feel like you got the support, right? Would you be willing to let us figure out the rest of it before we make a final decision tonight? I mean, look, if it was push to shove right now, I'd vote yes, okay? I'm not gonna tell you yes and then go to another one and say no. I mean, but I think out of fairness, and again, it's not nothing against the sheriff's office, to let us figure out how we're gonna take care of the others. And then, you know, in theory, I mean, it is what you presented here, right? That's what your budget is.
Yes.
So would you be willing or open to let us have one more meeting?
I mean, I appreciate you asking my opinion on that. However, it is this committee's choice.
True, that's true.
And I appreciate you asking my opinion on it. I prefer it be passed tonight. However, that's not my job. It's not my lane. It's what you guys have to do. And I understand all the arguments made here tonight. But we do have a motion and a second. I would like to see us vote on it and pass it, and move from there. But if you guys choose not to, I understand that too. No hard feelings.
Commissioner Bochamp.
I just want to say I'm going to stick with my motion. The budget is presented. Robbie's told us that he's going to give us the information. He's pretty certain that we can give everybody a raise. I'm fully confident that he's going to do that. I'm fully committed to funding that as well, so everybody can have a raise. But I'd like to see us pass this, move it out of the way so we can move on to the other budget stuff and get through the rest of the budget. But I'm fully committed to put it on the record, 5% raise, whatever it is that you was going to bring forth for all county employees, and we'll take care of everybody. But I want to take care of this one tonight.
So I would say this just from a personal standpoint. Growing up, Robbie and his brother Ty coached me in basketball and baseball, and particularly Robbie's a notorious tightwad. So I would tell you that if Robbie says it can be done, it can be done. He ain't gonna get too far out on that limb if he ain't confident.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner White.
If we vote on this tonight, I will vote no. Only because everybody else has presented one or two choices. I would like to see maybe two different proposals from the Sheriff's Department. Maybe the Cadillac plan and the Plymouth plan or something. And the sheriff's right. They do a job that I wouldn't be qualified or capable or have the guts to do. But this is a whole lot that we're asked to fund tonight. And I'd just rather have seen two different proposals.
And if I may comment to that, I appreciate that. And you're tired of hearing it, and I'm tired of saying it, right? But what's got us here is in 2007 we had a step plan that was funded one time, and it's now 2023.
One time.
Yeah, and so this is the direct
But we had
result.
good intention.
Absolutely, good intention. Just don't pay CUB bills, right?
Yeah, right.
That is ultimately when you boil it down. Not that we've not been given raises, or cost of living raises, by no means. But what we're finding ourselves in is in 2007, the county had the vision of so kind of what our industry was going to be like, right? Just like no different than Unit 1. You guys chose to build that, and we've reaped the benefits from it. We've been able to open it. We've been able to shut it down when we didn't need it, return those monies. At the end of the day, we lost our way. We come off the rails to a degree, right? Had a plan in place in 2007, funded in 2008, never funded again. I really believe we wouldn't even be having this conversation had we stuck to that, 16 years ago. That's just my take. And what we're doing here is we're not, and it's a lot of money, no two ways about it, but we want to fix it. We want to repair it so that we're not having these conversations in the future. Listen, I don't want the next, that's why I got to take out a big life insurance policy on myself, because I don't want the next one to have it as rough as I've had it at the house, right? This is the same analogy. We don't want the next sheriff, the next set of county commissioners to have to be dealing with this. Whenever that is.
Any further discussion?
One more thought.
Commissioner White?
In 2007, when we started this step plan, we had great intentions of following up year by year by year. And every year, we sat here and we try to dissect the budget and we try to figure out a fair way to distribute the monies that we have and be fair about it. And each year, a lot of times we're faced with approving the budget as presented or a tax increase. We've got plenty of money now, or I think we do, according to my figures. Let's spend it wisely. Thanks.
Shane, that's what I was, Commissioner Chairman Dow, about the salary plan. That wasn't just for the sheriff's office, that was for the whole county. Every county employee had a salary step plan in 2007.
Yes.
We funded it 1 year, but you can't fund what you don't have. And we're lucky we do have the funds. And last year we've given a 4% raise. 2 years ago, a 5% raise last year, an ARP retention payment. I mean, we've taken care of our employees the last 3 years, I think, and I think we will this year too. But in agreement with what Commissioner White says, sometimes when you commit to a salary plan or a step plan, there was a lot of years the county did not have the funding for that. I mean, we were, cutting. I remember with the 263 fund, the self-insurance fund, we were making half-month deposits just to keep it money in the bank. We didn't even have any money there, so we're lucky where we're at right now. So, and thankful for that too.
Well, it's been through good stewardship of the money. There's just no two ways about it. County's done a fabulous job on that. That's why we see how healthy we are. I will tell you that by that same token, and I'm sure we can find people to disagree with us, but I think as a sheriff's office, we've been good stewards with what you guys have given us. We have literally, with the exception of fuel last year, when the increase in fuel came up, we come back and got $34,000, Kenny, is that right? Somewhere around there. Somewhere between those numbers, we had a fuel increase because the cost of fuel had risen. Outside of that, when you guys were gracious enough to help us with Unit 1, when we were facing overcrowding, you guys gave us that money, and I stood right here at this very podium and said, when we don't need it, we'll shut it down and return it, and that's what we did. So I get your anxiousness over this, I really do. But again, I would tell you, we're not unreasonable. We're just simply not unreasonable across the street. And on top of that, we will do what's right. We will do what's right every time. And more importantly, though, the thing I will tell you is in order to, with the influx of people we're having come to Anderson County, and the amount of services, in particular what we're seeing with mental health and some of the things they're putting onto law enforcement to deal with, right? We have to make sure that we're keeping and attracting quality people. And honestly, guys, we're very fortunate that we have individuals here in our ranks that not only do they want to do this job, but they want to do it for Anderson County. But I will tell you, it gets tough it gets tough on these folks when everybody around us, when everybody in the county is paying more than we are. And again, pay's not the end all be all. We know that, but boy, it sure helps. And the fact of the matter is, with this proposed budget, we already know that we're still not touching Roane County numbers at 51,000. But we met 4 times with our staff, with all of our employees, and everybody is in agreement. This is something we can do. This is doable. If we can get it passed as presented, that you will not hear belly aching or buyer's remorse from our end, because we've met, we worked on this, we agreed upon it as a group, and we understand, you know, economy tanks and things like that, like Robbie talked about, how you funded it in 8 and then didn't have it after that. We understand the risk of that. We do.
Any further discussion? I'd like to make just a couple of comments, and I'll time myself because I know we've all been here for a while. I do appreciate the fact that HR is working on another compensation plan countywide. I agree with the fact that all of our county employees are most likely deserving, but having to go along with the merit argument that was made a while ago, I don't know how things are done in other departments. I know in the sheriff's office, working in a paramilitary organization where discipline and structure is pertinent, it's certainly emphasized when you have quality employees and what you can require of them and what workload you can dump on them and still get a good desired effect. Not to take away from any other county employee, I don't work in those other offices, but having the privilege of working with a lot of the men and women that are sitting in this room today, I couldn't point a finger at any of them right now and say we could do without them. None of us get into this business to get rich. It's pretty much told to us what we're going to make, and we still raise our right hand and take the oath and do it anyway. It's not about the money. And you're sitting here thinking, well, it's not about the money, what are we talking about? What we're talking about is when a man or a woman goes home each night and he has to worry about making the rent payment or buying groceries or medication for a member of his family, and he gets a phone call from a neighboring county that says, hey, I hear you work at Anderson County. How would you like to come to work for us? Because we have that reputation at Anderson County of producing good law enforcement officers, and other agencies get jealous of that. So when they start offering $10,000 more a year, even though it's not about the money, that's still ringing in our employees' ears. So I think what the sheriff is trying to do is stop the bleeding and trying to keep the fine people that we do have that continue to work for us. To the mayor's point, and I agree with her wholeheartedly, I believe EMS do a dangerous job as well. I've called them into our jail before in bad situations. There's blood everywhere, and I've been injured myself. Director Sweet loves telling the story when he came in and had to haul me out in a gurney at one time. If it hadn't been for EMS responding, I might be in worse shape than I am today. I respect what EMS does, I really do. And I believe at some point we do need to come back and address those issues as well. To Commissioner Smallridge's point, again, everybody deserves a raise. I agree with that to an extent. I believe merit should come into it at some point or another, especially in law enforcement agencies, but I believe Robbie has given us some good answers to those questions as far as where the money may come from, not only to fund the sheriff's budget with the cuts that we made here tonight, versus giving everyone else a raise too, and maybe even coming back again looking at that. Commissioner White's point of let's be wise with the money, I agree with that 100%. No, 07 was a hard time. 08, 09, 10, heck, when I got on in 16, it was a hard time. The Lord's blessed us. We've got some resources and some funding opportunities now that we didn't have back then. If now is not the time to do it, especially when we can do it without a tax increase, If now is not the time to do it, then how long do we wait before we do? And if we wait too much longer, then the cost of being able to make these corrections and maintain our personnel is gonna go up. And then we're gonna have to have even more money to be able to do what we're trying to do now. We've got the funding right now, to Commissioner Wandell's point, and I agree with the subjection part of the merit raises, but we would certainly go and train the supervisors. They've already had it, but we would do it again. Lieutenant Allen is probably one of the best as far as trying to get all the supervisors doing things the same way. Have a form that they fill out, boxes that they check. One of the ideas we spoke about was the officer knows what direction they're headed in before they get there. So at a 6-month evaluation, they'll see what they need to improve before the year evaluation comes up. And the supervisor will tell them, you're doing great here, but I need you to improve here. So they know during another 6-month time period what they need to improve on to qualify for their merit raise. The good questions, there are things we can do. We can work it out. We can make this possible. I think this plan does fix the problems that we're facing in the sheriff's office. Could the same plan similar be used to fix the problems that we have in all other county departments? Very well could be. Maybe this could be a good starting point. Maybe Captain Sharp and Chief Galloway and the sheriff could be willing not to copyright their plan, and maybe we could use it in other departments and reap the benefits as there as well. But my suggestion to all of us is, while we have the opportunity to do this, let's do it. We haven't even talked about getting with the property assessor and getting an idea on how much property taxing revenue is going to increase. Not we're raising property taxes, but the property tax revenue will increase with all the building that's going around us. Drive up the boulevard toward the interstate, see what's going on up there. Drive into South Clinton, drive on up into the 4th District. I mean, there are houses and homes being built everywhere, and that's because our job market's increased so well. Now it's time to focus on the residential side of it, and I believe we'll see the fruition of that. Now, that's just Shane's opinion. That's not actual numbers that I have yet, but would love to get those from Mr. Alley whenever he was able to do that.
So on last note, and I'll close and I'm shutting up and let you guys figure out what's next. I will tell you this, and it's not, I'm not trying to spook anybody down any particular path, but I want you guys to think about this too. Again, when I talk about we're covered by civil service and county policy, we're kind of hybrid, and that we are different just by the nature of the work we're doing. I will say this, again, it is the only position in the county that in a very chaotic situation, you're asked to make split-second decisions that could potentially be life or death, and then people get to take a 1.5 to 3 years to determine whether you need to be criminally charged for a wrong decision. That's the kind of pressure and stress we're putting on these folks. Outside of just staying safe themselves and keeping the people safe, you literally could be criminally charged. And not to take away from anybody else, but honestly, we could all be sued at any given time for a multitude of things. But to be criminally charged, and I'm talking about chaotic split-second decisions, we have to take that into consideration, because I can promise you that weighs heavily on my staff and on me.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the sheriff's budget proposal, minus those 340. Let me know I'm all in favor by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no.
No.
Take a hand vote. All in favor, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1 no. Motion passes 5-1.
Thank you, guys.
Hey, Tracy, hold on a second. I have one more budget amendment. It's kind of important, especially in your district.
Can we take a break?
Yeah, I gotta use
call
the
my
restroom.
mom. Something's going on. I gotta
5-minute recess.
Oh, is that done?
No, we probably had one more. session.
Okay, only one more budget amendment. I apologize for this being entered late, but Dr. Parrott really felt like it was for a good cause. He's asking for $25,000 for land for earnest money for potential property purchase of land for new Claxton Elementary School. And I want to explain the $411,000. What happened, with the ESSER grant, we kind of had a misunderstanding with our office and the budget and the schools. They thought they paid it out of last year's money, but the entry did not get made to last year, so that money rolled forward, and it got paid out of this year's money. Then he committed the funds to Chromebooks. So we have $400,000 unaccounted for, but we have to have that money in that budget code with that money that rolled forward just to cover that expense. So that's more of a budgeting, finance. I'll take the blame. It was. So for audit purposes, we need this to happen.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Bochamp to approve Section D on the agenda, seconded by Commissioner Wandell. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Motion carried. Any new business come before the committee?
Hey, something that is gonna come up at our, at our board meeting on Monday night. As you know, we've been looking for land for 3 years in Claxton. And, you can't find, you can find 30 acres, but you can't find nobody that wants to sell it. And so, we had about a month and a half ago, Joe Williams, learned that the church was going to be for sale. Crossroads Christian Church is going to be for sale. If you know it, it's the building right across from Zion Church, which is right up the hill from there. It's actually 29.9 acres and a 28,000 square feet building, which was built in 2008, I think. So we went over and looked at it, and we've talked about it, and I've entered into just a verbal agreement that we want first right of refusal, and we're gonna talk about it at the board meeting on Monday night. And we have offered them $3 million for that piece of property. And I've got some other things, but I don't know if I can talk about it right now. I wanna ask you for some things, but we'll leave it at that to see if the board wants to do it. But when I get drawings of it, it's just preliminary drawings. Michael Brady's working on it. But one of the things we will have to do is, I've talked with Jay, there's 2 other pieces of properties that will get us to Raccoon Valley, to where we can come out on Raccoon Valley. I've talked with the mayor, and she's already gonna be working with TDOT on some of that thing. And the building, if you build it today, would cost us $8 million to build that building. So we believe we can it's got a great auditorium in it. It's got a big already commercial kitchen. We'll have to do some things, but then we'll have to do some, but I think it's gonna be a fantastic place that we can put it, and yes. And I think I think once I talk to the board, I think a proposal I have will be a win for the county too. So it'll be a win for all of us. So thank you all for that. Thank you for trusting me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doc.
Have a good day.
You too.
Any new business? Any old business?
Can I bring up one thing?
Yes, sir.
Please. Would we consider giving the Chamber of Commerce $25,000 or $50,000 toward their building? Just a thought.
Are you asking for a motion on that tonight?
The city of Clinton obligated themselves to $25,000 for the new building that the Chamber's wanting to build, and
I believe that was they already give a contribution to the chamber every year, like we do, at $30,000.
Yes.
They were considering taking it out of their budget, but they kept it in. I think that's all that was.
I believe it's also one of the issues we wanted clarification on tonight too, if the hotel motel tax money could be used in that direction. So once we get an answer on that, I'd certainly.
Definitely make a contribution from their fund, because the hotel motel tax goes to the chamber and tourism.
Yep.
So.
And our hotel motel tax increased from 30 to 60,000 in 2 years. What we're contributing to the chamber. from Fund 128.
Folks, thank you all so much for hanging with us tonight. I know it was a longer meeting than usual, but we got through a lot and made a lot of important decisions for the county, so.
And guys, I voted against the sheriff's department. Not that I'm against the sheriff's budget, but I'd love to have seen a comparison of the best budget, best proposal, and then maybe a little bit lesser of a proposal.
And I meant to ask that question. Robbie, he mentioned that some departments are turning in more than one budget proposal. I know EMS did. didn't
EMS is normally EMS always gives you their
it?
Cadillac,
Right.
middle.
Do
and
any
their-
other departments do that?
No, we have other
Okay.
departments that request money, that
I thought,
request
man, I missed some.
additional,
Okay.
but yeah, not
Okay.
usually.
All right, I got you. All right.
And I will bring back next meeting a 5% raise for every employee that hasn't received one, show you what that looks like. And with some ideals for funding EMS in their budget.
And we'll have money to do that.
I believe so, yes. I know so, yes.
That's a yes.
That's a yes.
What's that line in Star Trek? I take your guess more than my facts.
And Mr. Chairman, if I'm not mistaken, the budget's not passed yet.
Correct.
We passed the department's
Correct.
budget, and we can always
Correct.
modify before we pass the overall budget, if need be. I'm not saying we are, but isn't that right?
I was gonna say, until commission votes to pass this budget, it's not passed.
Right.
This is just what the budget committee is presenting to
Yep.
commission. And it has been changed at the very last minute. I think the mayor realized that when it got changed on her right at the last minute, so it can happen,
Well, I'd like to see something on EMS,
definitely.
and all the employees, but EMS.
Oh, for sure.
Because mayor is right. They didn't ask for anything, and we just passed the
Well-
standard budget, no increase.
Yeah, and that step increase that the sheriff talks about that they didn't get, no employee got that. They all were
Mhm.
involved in that,
Yeah, yeah.
and
I think we can come away from this, Mr. Chairman, all positive, and we all
Definitely.
hopefully hit the mark with everybody. That's what we
Yep.
need to do.
All right. No further business. We're adjourned.